All right, guys, so we're over here at On Point Shooting LLC, gun shop. They handle all my modifications. Figured I'd take this opportunity because I just got in a new Walther PDP SF match 5-inch, and I'm going to show you guys all the modifications that I have done and then I have Mike do for me. So right off the bat, this is your stock PDP SF 5-inch steel frame. Phenomenal gun. Doesn't really need much modification, but there's things that I find that assist me in modifying this gun to make it work for my application. So first thing I do is I bring my stock Walther PDP and I bring it over to On Point and I have them make some custom modifications for me that I find work for my hand size. So right off the bat, I have Mike silicone carbide the grip. He takes the stock grip panels for this particular gun and he puts a 36 grit silicone carbide. I've also had him silicone carbide the low grips. What's nice about this, if you have the low grips, although you'd be spending extra money for the grips, you can get those palm swells out of it, right? So this has the palm swells. These are the bogies already made into the plastic, and then I had him do the 36 grit. I prefer this actually better than the stock grips because like I said, you get the palm swells. After Mike does that, I have him do a beaver tail reduction and polish and take a little bit of the under on the back strap there out to make this nice and smooth and make it a little bit more friendly for the draw stroke. I found that this beaver tail, with the way I draw the gun, was a little bit long and my thumb would catch on it and drag when I was trying to get into the pistol really aggressively, right? So all I had him do, and I'll show you guys what that looks like, you can see side to side, is he removes that beaver tail and he polishes and takes a little bit out of the underside, making that really clean. And then from the back, you can see he just brings it right down to the face of the slide. Cool. All right, so this, I really like this modification. If you need that done, Mike can handle that for you. So the next modification, this is our stock Walther PDP, and I've already removed this on mine, but I'll simply show you. This is pretty easy. I like to remove the mag well, not because it's not a great mag well, it is, but I compete in carry optics, and obviously you can't have a mag well. So this is super simple. All you do is take the appropriate punch, put it on the table, come in here, and give her a couple whacks down, and then slowly removing the detent or roll pin out of the gun, and then you put it back in once you remove the mag well. So pretty simple to do. That's already been done on both these guns. All right, so once we have that, we're ready to start working on the actual guns and the internals. So what I like to do is I like to add reduced trigger spring. So this will decrease your weight a little bit, but just to show you guys what the stock weight is, we'll put this gun in the vise and we'll get you some stock trigger pull weights so you can see exactly what we're coming in stock, and then you can see with the modification what we get. So we'll zero this out. Now obviously you have to pay attention to when you're using this gauge. If I put it on a different spot of the trigger when I'm pulling, that's going to directly correlate to influencing the trigger pull weight. So I'm going to try to keep it in the same spot every time when I pull it, and we'll see if we can get some consistent pulls. So, all right, so right there we're at 4 pounds, 12 ounces, 0.9. That's consistent from what I've seen from across the board from a few of these guns that I've used. And not that that's a bad weight, but I like to have it a little bit lighter. So clear that out. All right, that one I pulled a little extra. That was on 5.4. So this is what I was talking about, guys. You really got to be precise on when you're using these. That initial pull is what I found doing this is right around, 4.5 pounds. Yep, so that's 414.5. That's roughly what you're getting out of the stock trigger, which is completely fine, but I like to make it a little bit softer, right? So how do we do that? So I go over, I got this from the Ben Proger store, Pro Shop, and it's the Springco trigger reduction spring kit, right? They also sell one that comes with a safety plunger reduced spring. I don't put that in, I just buy the spring here. These are like $8, super cheap. So what we're gonna do, this is actually a trick that my buddy Nick Young showed me from Vlox Training Group. And he has, you know, I don't know, 50, 60,000 rounds on this setup like this. And I've been running it for probably about 5,000 rounds, and I really enjoyed the way it makes the gun feel. All right, so we can show you real quick. I have it done here on this gun already. So if you come in here, you can see all we're looking to do is take that already reduced spring weight and then stretch a little bit. What I found is right around the 5th coil from the back, so you got to make sure you stretch the correct side. Because if you don't stretch the correct side, it's going to have a different effect. All right, so we want to stretch the back side of the spring. So this is the way the spring comes stock, and then you're going to have a loop and you're going to have a hook. All right, so the hook goes in the front right there. It hooks around the front here, and you're going to have a little tab that we're going to hook the rear of that loop. All right, so what I want to do to create this stretch of the spring is, what I found is, if I count the coils that I want, and what works for me currently, and this might change, is at the 5th coil past the punch, I put a little hook in here. All right, I hold nice and tight once the hook is inserted in, and then I stretch. All right, once we have that spring already stretched, then we're going to reinsert it back in the gun, and it should look something like that. All right, so I'm going to do that right now on this gun, and we'll show you guys how we do that. So there's a little hole there that we want to make sure that hook is in there secure. Before we do this, these little hook picks work really great to stretch this, because the space in the back here is pretty tight. You can see that, right? And this will allow me to stretch and kind of slide that onto the gun there. So you're going to see that your trigger bar might drop down, so take a little flat nose screwdriver and pry this up. Pry that up, and then you can hold it up right here on the trigger bar over there, so this is not down. When you're doing that, if you take a smaller hook, if you have availability, dental picks, all that works, you can kind of loop that right in there, and then we're good. That feels about right. So we'll now put the slide back on, and we'll check the pull weight to see if we got the same product. Feels close. It feels like it might be a little bit heavy, so we'll just play with that a little bit more. And this is going to be one of those things, guys, you're going to just have to play with it a little bit and make sure it's to your liking and what you're looking for. You can go as many coils as you feel fit. I'd have a couple extra of these springs because you can definitely, obviously, easily mess this up. All right, so let's just check what this is at right now. All right, so that's at 3.1. Check it again. So we've greatly already reduced the pull weight, but the other one is at 2. So a little over 2. That came in at 214. Like I said, these pull gauges, if you don't exactly pull from the same spot on the trigger, you're going to get different feedback. The correct way to really do this is with the weights. All right, so we're 317. I feel like that's right, so I'm going to stretch this a little bit more and get us to the pull weight that we need to. Hold. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is I like to install the ZR Tactical long stroke guide rod, right? So these are very specific to the model. You have to make sure you get the right one. This is for the 5-inch steel frame. Their website will guide you exactly for which one you want. So we remove the stock guide rod system, and then what we're going to have to do is remove this little housing right here. Easiest way to do that, I found, is just take a flat nose punch, put it in the front. There's a little lip on this plastic housing, and we can just lightly tap that, and that'll unseat that from locking. Right? You'll see that it's running within this channel here. It won't come off because it's being blocked by the striker. So we're going to have to remove the back plate. So we'll detent, we'll put some pressure on the safety plunger, and the striker. And then there's a little detent in the back here that we want to defeat as we remove the housing backwards. All right, once we defeat that, we can slide the housing right off and remove our striker. This is a captured safety plunger, not like Glock, so we don't have to worry about that popping out. And then all we're going to do is slide this right out of the channel and then reinsert it. All right, cool. So I'm going to put this in the vise. Makes life a little bit easier, right? And that'll help you guys be able to see exactly what I'm doing. So put the firing pin back in, depress the plunger safety, and then drop this firing pin just down enough. Then I'm going to go slide the housing back in. All right, so now we're good. Now we can insert our barrel and insert our new long stroke guide rod. Brass part forward, just slides right in, and we're good to go. Have that seated. All right, we'll slide that back on, and we'll check the pull weight of our trigger install. All right, so function check. Everything appears to be good. All right, so we're right at 2.18. This gun's brand new. A couple more rounds that'll lighten up. So that's exactly where I like my triggers. All right, so next we're gonna move to installing the optic and the optic plate and what I recommend for that. First thing we wanna do is make sure there's no grease in the gun. It's a brand new gun, so obviously there's grease in it. We wanna make sure we clean that out so we don't have any failures with our Loctite. So I'm gonna take this Loctite primer 749. It's basically an acetone, and it's going to get all that grease out of there. So all you do is take a little bit and just get her right down in the holes here. Get the brush in there. Make sure we're cleaning that out. We'll take some compressed air now. That's prepped, ready for screws. If you're using old screws, make sure you do the same process. You clean out, you get all the oil, get the old, same old Loctite off, or whatever it is. When you're looking at a lot of Loctite, a lot of people, and myself included, have used this for a while, this blue Loctite, but I was introduced to this other Loctite, which is 425, and essentially it's blue Loctite, but what this does is it gives you a quicker dry time. So this is roughly around 15 minutes, where you can mount that, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then go zero it. If I use the traditional blue Loctite that we've all been using, we have to wait 24 hours for that to dry before we can start shooting and zeroing that optic, or we risk the integrity of the Loctite not sealing. All right, guys, so when I'm looking for an optic plate, this is an extremely important part. It needs to be rigid, it needs to be robust, because this is what's essentially attaching our optic to the gun so we can maintain a proper zero. One thing that I look for in a good optic plate is for a clean snap in, almost where you don't even need the screws. It's so tight. I'm even cool if it needs a little bit of a mallet to put that in, right? A lot of these plates are not going to have that secure lockup. They don't cut them correctly or to the same tolerances, right? So this will take a little snap in. You hear the snap? Right? I don't know if you guys can hear it, but there's a snap. All right, snaps right in. This plate without any screws is locked in nice and solid. All right, the plate company that I recommend is Arise. Arise Manufacturing. They are making, I believe, currently the best plates out there. All right. What's also nice with Arise, and not that you need it, but I do think it's a nice added feature, is they give you a protective shroud, right? So although these Holosun 507 comps are great optics, they're not marketed as a duty optic, but does that mean that it can't handle it? I believe it can, right? But if I have the ability to add a little extra protection to it, why wouldn't I? It actually fits very snug, and I'll show you this around the optic. I don't actually notice any difference, and I'd rather have that added protection, because as a couple weeks ago, I wasn't paying attention, and I did drop my gun right on the optic, and it fell right on the shroud, and it was rock solid, no zero issues, right? Things do happen, although we don't intend for them to happen, they do. So I like having the shroud. Some of them are loose, they're not really manufactured to the correct tolerances. This snaps right in on there. You can see it's a snug feel, right? Like right off the bat, just between the plate tolerances and the detent tolerances, you've already got a sturdy housing for your optic to maintain zero. That's a huge huge benefit in what I look for in an optic plate and for guys that are making these things. So, but back to the plate. Some of the plates, they go underneath the optic, right? So you don't have the ability to take the plate on and off, especially like if it did take a really bad spill and you cared about aesthetics and you bent this housing, right? You could easily just buy another housing, take it off without having to unzero your optic, right? So this just slides on, and if you look on the side here, it's just got screw holes that will mount into the side. So if I'm shooting with it and I decide I don't like it, I can just undo those screws, take it off without even taking my optic off and having to worry about losing zero and doing that, because let's be real, time is a precious commodity, and anytime we don't have to do something extra, that's an added bonus. So I look for some convenient things like that as well, right? So once we have everything cleaned and we have the proper mount here, we're then going to start putting the screws in, right? So I'm going to put a little bit of these Loctite on the screws. Arise does a really nice job with labeling all the screws and for what it is. So these are the hollow stone screws. You have your shroud screws. They come with a ton of different screws in the box. They also give you traditional blue Loctite, but like I said, we're going to use this 425. This will come out a little bit purple, but essentially it is the same as blue Loctite. All right guys, so now that we have our plate snapped into place, it's nice and tight. You can see there's no wiggle room. That's going to definitely assist us in keeping any additional tension off those screws, which can cause snapping. All right, so now we have to mount or affix the plate to the gun, and what we're looking to do is with the same thing, right? So I'm going to clean that with some acetone real quick. Then I'm going to put a little bit of our thread locker on it. Sometimes they come with preset blue Loctite on there already. Not an issue. I would still put a little bit of extra on here. And what I'm looking for is not a ton, right? I don't want any of the additional Loctite that doesn't stay in the threads to be dripping down into the gun. All right, that can definitely cause problems. So I'm literally just going to touch the screw with it and then push it on here, like say, get it around. Nothing crazy. We don't want any huge bubbling down there. I'll do the next one. Put the screw in there. So when you're doing this, if you want to try to avoid any cross starting, right, because that can cause a major issue, and then you got to send your gun back to Mike, and he's got to drill it out and fix it, right? We're going to counter rotate it, and what you're going to see is you'll feel a little click, and that's the screw seating properly into the thread, and then we can actually turn it down the correct way to mount it. Then once we're good, we're just going to continue to lock this down. I already have a torque gauge on here, and what I'm looking for is to put this right around 15 pounds-foot torque. All right, so put this on here so I can see the gauge. I'm going to bounce back and forth, doing each screw little by little, making sure and confirming that the plate hasn't jumped up or moved. We're still on a flat surface. Everything is good. And now I'm going to torque to 15. All right, so we're right at 15 there. Now we're going to affix the optic. Now I'm going to take my 507 comp and I'm going to seat it on the plate. All right, so I'm going to line it up with those holes, give it a little push down, and I'm going to give her a little bit of tap right on here. Make sure she's seated. So right off the bat, guys, you can look at the amount of force that I'm putting on this. Like, this is not coming off. This is what I'm talking about. High precision cut optic plates that really keep this gun. I mean, there's no screws in this thing, and it's not coming off, right? So Jordan does a great job with making high-end parts for these guns, and this is what keeps us being able to do our job, right? So this is why I really love this product. So give her a couple more taps down, make sure she's there, even though it didn't feel like it unseated. Why not? So once we have that fully on there, nice and snug, I'm going to insert the screws for the optic, right? Jordan does a really good job. Like I said before, he marks them exactly out for which optic you're going to be using. What I found for the sweet spot is some of these screws have been really not holding tolerances well, and they've been snapping when you're getting them a little bit tighter. So what I found, I've been running for probably the last couple years, is putting these screws at 18 inch-pounds of torque, right? So it's a little bit under, but with this appropriate Loctite and that poundage, I've found success, and I haven't had anything come loose, and I'm running these guns hard. So I'll put these in real quick, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next. So we already got the screws prepped and then Loctited, and then we're just finishing up the little touches here now on making sure that we have them at the appropriate poundage here, or inch pounds. All right, so this is good. Our optic is mounted. So now we have the option with this Arise plate system if we want to put the shroud on. I like the shroud. Same exact thing. They give you the provided screws for that. Say shroud screws. How convenient. Thank you, Jordan. And then we're just going to do the exact same thing. So these screws will just mount right into the side of this plate here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the screws. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on them, and then I'll start screwing them in. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll show you the finished product, and then we'll come back and we'll start witness marking all the screws so we know if they do loosen up. All right, guys, so now we have the shroud and optic fully mounted. We're ready to go and zero it. Just a quick note, really cool feature that Jordan does for you over at Arise is he gives you the appropriate torque bits that you need. So he gives you a T8 and a T10. So if you don't have these, you don't have to worry about it. He provides them to you, but obviously you're going to need some type of torque wrench to use them with, right? So really cool feature, not always added into the plates, and Jordan does that for you. All right, so last thing we're going to do is we are going to install the mag release. I like to use the extended mag release. I'm using the one currently from Walther. Walther does a couple different ones here. They have a teardrop, and then they have this round one. I like the teardrop better, but they're really hard to find. Walther doesn't stock them as often as this one. So come over here real quick. I'll show you what I have on my other gun. So there is your teardrop right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the process of installing this mag release. All right. This is a little bit of a pain because of this detent right here. And that takes a little bit of adjusting to do, but we'll walk you through that. All right. All right, guys. So now we're uninstalling the stock mag release, and we're installing the Walther extended one, right? So this is a little bit of a pain, and it takes some finesse, but ultimately what we're trying to do is there's a little hole right here that you're going to need a very little punch to fit in there. What's going to happen is when we push this in there, it's going to come out the back. Okay, you see that, Bill? Mm-hmm. All right, come out the back. All right, what's happening is it's depressing it's depressing this fin right here. So the punch comes in and it's depressing this fin right here, which is releasing the tension on the clip and allows us to slide this out. All right, it is a pain. All right, so what that looks like, put this back in. All right, you'll see I'll leave the screw in there. Once it's depressed, I'll keep some pressure on it, and there's a little lip right here on your mag release right here, and then you just kind of pry that and then pop it out. That will release this clip from here, and you remove that. Now there's a spring inside here, so we don't want to lose that. So when we remove this, you want to keep that spring, and you want to keep this clip, and try not to beat it up too bad because you got to reuse it again because they don't give you that. So now I'm going to reinsert the mag release, put my hand in here, I'll get it aligned correctly, and I'll push it all the way out. All right, all I'm going to do is re-slide the clip back into the grooves here and push down and release. And now it's in, and then we can function check that mag release. Make sure these little sleeves don't fall out. You don't want to lose them, but you can see now we have our extended mag release. It functions, no issues. All right. I did take off the grip panels to do this because the angles, not that you can't do it with the grip panels on there, but this angle to push that little clip's detent is pretty extreme, and you need to get in there. And then when you have the added space of not having the grips on there, you can really manipulate that clip and get the pressure on it a lot better than when you're fighting the ergonomics of the fatter grips, especially when you start doing silicone carbide and stuff on them. So I like removing the grips. It's an extra step, but it definitely makes your life a lot easier when you're planning. So we're just looking to put a little bit of paint across the screw and some part of the gun so we can know if that's shifted. Make sure we put a nice straight line on that. All right, guys, so hope you enjoyed that. This is how I set up my Walther PDP steel frame. Definitely go check out these vendors. They are top quality products, all right? Mike from On Point can take care of all this beaver tail reduction work if it's something you like. Adding some silicone carbide to the grip. Definitely Jordan over at Rise, phenomenal guy, good shooter, making phenomenal products, which is a crucial part to being able to run these guns hard and not lose zero. Hope this helped. Also Z&R, check them out as well for that long stroke guide rod. It definitely changes the impulse and the way this gun reacts, I think, for the better. Not a must, but I definitely like it. So check them out as well. We'll be doing more content like this, doing rifle stuff, all different types of stuff, so we'll be around and look out for that.